I first realized that I had feelings for women when I fell in love with a woman. I had just turned 18 years old, and it was a completely shocking experience for me. I was away from home for the summer studying French at a university in Vancouver and became very good friends with a woman named M. We fell madly in love with each other. And she had never been with a woman, I had never been with a woman. And we were together on and off for 7.5 years. And I realized in saying sort of when did I first fall in love with a woman, for me is a very different question than when did I realize I was gay. Because for quite a few years during that relationship, I really maintained to myself and to the few people who knew about the relationship that I wasn't really sure I was gay, or maybe I was gay, maybe I wasn't gay, maybe I was bisexual, and she identified as bisexual, and I think to this day would identify as bisexual. For me, it eventually became very clear that I was gay, but it was very, very hard for me to admit that to myself, even though I was in a relationship with a woman for a number of years. So I came out to my family and friends over a period of years. When I first fell in love with a woman and got involved with a woman, I came out to a couple of really close friends who were wonderfully, wonderfully supportive. But I was very, very frightened to come out to other friends. It turned out I never actually, once I started coming out to all my friends, I never had a problem with any of them. All of them were really embracing. But I was so afraid of being rejected by them that it took me years to come out to them. With my family, it also was sort of a staggered experience. I came out to my mom, I think I was 21 years old. I just had dinner with her and my dad. My dad had wandered off somewhere, and I looked at my mom and I said, you know what's going on with me, don't you? And she said, well, I think I know what's going on with you, but please tell me. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm gay, but I'm in love with M. She looked at me and she said, okay. And I said, okay. And I was terrified because my fear was that my mother was going to disown me, that she wouldn't love me anymore and she would disown me. And she said, yeah, okay, but I just don't want to talk about it anymore. And I was so relieved that she didn't say, get out of here, I never want to see you again, I hate you, that I thought, okay, reasonable, sure, okay, now she knows, she just doesn't want to talk about it anymore. And we actually didn't talk about it for a very long time. And I think because there was the prohibition against talking about it, it took me a number of years before I told my brother, who was the next person I told. Told my brother when I was about 25 years old. And it was actually kind of a funny scenario. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and my brother was living in Toronto, and he told me he had a new girlfriend. And so the simultaneous plan was I was going to meet his new girlfriend. I was hoping that she would go into another room, and then I was going to come out to my brother. So I arrive at his apartment building, and he and this woman, who I presumed was his girlfriend, strode across the lobby, and I was kind of nervous. And she held out her hand to me, and she very confidently looked at me and said, "Hi, I'm gay." And I froze, because I didn't know what she just said to me. What did that mean? And I thought to myself in my head, well, me too, but I didn't want to just say it out loud like that. And then I realized her name was Gay. I recovered. And then, about a couple of hours later, she went off somewhere. My brother's girlfriend went off somewhere, who is now his wife, my sister-in-law. And my brother and I sat down, and I said, I got a funny story to tell you about something that just happened with your girlfriend. And I proceeded to tell him that I was gay. And my brother had a wonderful reaction. He said, I absolutely love you, and there's nothing you can tell me that would change that, so okay. And he was willing to keep talking about it. So my brother was a very, very supportive person that I came out to. One thing I forgot to say about my mom, though, is the other thing, she didn't say I don't want to ever talk about it again. She also said, don't you dare tell your father. That was the other part of the prohibition, so I forgot to say that, and that was an important one. Because my father was mentally ill. He was very severely, I guess now the word's bipolar 1. Then the phrase was manic depression, the diagnosis was manic depression. And he was a very severe case and had very severe both manic and depressed episodes. And my mother's prohibition against me telling my father was that she was sure it would spark an episode. And when I was about 20, I guess 27, 28 years old, so probably 7 years after I came out to my mom, I realized through my own process, especially working with a therapist, on my own homophobia, my own discomfort with being gay, and with trying to navigate some of the stuff in my family, that I needed to tell my father. And so I called my dad in Toronto and I said, I'm coming home for a visit and there's something I want to talk to you about. And I remember calling my mom and telling my mom that I was going to come out to my father. And she said, no, you can't do this to me. We have to sit down and talk about this before you do it. She said, you'll come to therapy with me before you tell your dad. And I said, no, I'll come to therapy with you after I tell dad. And I sat down with my dad, and I remember I gave him this incredibly long preamble about how our family was a family where there were lots of secrets, and I'd been keeping a secret from him that my mom knew about, and my brother knew about, but he didn't know about, and I was tired of all of our family secrets and didn't want to play into that anymore. And it was this sort of long spiel about secrecy. So that by the time I told my dad, I said, Daddy, I'm gay. And he said two things. He said, Rona, I love you. And the second thing he said was, I hope you're still going to have children. And this always makes me tear up because it's many years later, and it took me a very long time, and it took me till many years after he died. But I now have a child, and that my father was my crazy father, my very mentally ill father, the one I wasn't supposed to tell because it would create an episode. He was my most wonderful coming out experience. He was so loving and so accepting, and he told me after I came out, he said, oh my God, I was so relieved when you told me you were gay. I was so worried you had cancer, that something horrible was going on with you, and it's just that you're gay. So that's my family coming out experience, and my friends just happened over many years because I really, it was my own homophobia. In my case, I know a lot of people really face a lot of terrible circumstances when they come out. For me, I really was very, very lucky, but it was about me navigating my own discomfort with being gay, and it took me a very, very long time. Probably it wasn't until really just after I came out to my dad that I really started coming out in a much more broad-based way to all of my friends and also professionally. So that's my story. So I think the best advice I could give someone who is considering coming out or in the process of coming out is to really try and create for yourself as strong and as large a support system as you possibly can. So if you have friends who you know are gay friendly, tell those friends first and ask them to be supportive of you and to help you in your process. And if you live in a place where there's a gay and lesbian center or resources for gays and lesbians or bisexuals or transgender people, see if you can tap into those resources. Some of those places have phone lines. Some of them actually you can go in and meet with people. I know that on this website you'll find a lot of other resources that you can look at. So I would say take advantage of as many of those resources as possible. Because there are no guarantees about how your parents and family or other friends will respond. And while I very much hope for you that everyone responds for you in a loving and accepting and embracing way, and that you respond to yourself in a loving and embracing way, there are no guarantees of that. So the best I can say is try and get as much support as possible in any way you can.